The biggest lie about veganism by AsapSCIENCE. It's all lies. I don't think I've ever seen a video from AsapSCIENCE. Partner told me that they had a plant intelligence video that was really bad. Like they took plant intelligence seriously. So that does not bode well for this video.
Veganism has exploded in popularity across the world. For some, it's out of sympathy for animals.
Sympathy for animals seems like a mild way to put that.
Increasingly, many are swapping diets due to the environmental and health claims. But are these claims even accurate? Like, does going vegan actually make a noticeable difference on the planet, or are those impacts over-exaggerated? And is it even healthy at all? Or is the lack of animal proteins and nutrients actually detrimental to your body?
Depression, anxiety, hypothyroidism, sarcopenia, that is muscle loss, hair loss, dermatitis, anemia, osteoporosis, bone fractures. Dermatitis is an interesting one. I don't think I've heard that as like a reason not to be vegan. Depression, anxiety, yes, many people make that argument, although it's not clear at all that there's any link between those and veganism. Some studies have found a connection, some have not. Some have even found a positive connection or a negative correlation between veganism and depression. I talk about that in this video. I'll link the time code where I talk about it if you're interested. Hypothyroidism, iodine deficiency, yes, you can absolutely be iodine deficient on a vegan diet or any diet. And if you are in the kind of health conscious crowd, you might be more likely to eat sea salt. Sea salt typically is not iodized. Wow, am I a 12-year-old boy going through puberty? Typically not iodized, and vegans do not consume fish. We do not drink cow's milk, which typically contains a large amount of iodine. Supplemental iodine, to be clear, it's not naturally present in milk in large quantities. Sarcopenia, again, muscle loss. Yeah, if you believe you can't get enough protein on a vegan diet, that one's pretty stupid. Hair loss, sure, protein, zinc, iron have been linked to hair loss. It's not clear if they really play that much of a role. Anemia, absolutely, you can be low in iron and B12 on a vegan diet if you're not taking a B12 supplement, and prioritizing iron or even supplementing for iron if you have a lot of blood loss every month. Osteoporosis, bone fracture. Being vegan, not eating animal products, does not automatically protect your bones. That is a myth that animal products cause osteoporosis and that by being vegan, you're somehow protected automatically. No, you need to make sure you get enough calcium. They also list vitamin D here, many other nutrients as well. Resistance training is absolutely vital, particularly the older you get. So essentially, it's the same problems we have with any sort of diet, any sort of restriction. If you are cutting out certain foods specifically, you're going to have to pay attention to certain nutrients more than other people who are just eating everything. Their bigger concern is going to be too many calories, right? Too much saturated fat, not enough fiber, probably. To be clear, these aren't the arguments that AsapSCIENCE is making. They're just laying out the claims, I guess, and I assume they're going to go through all of these. I don't know. Let's see.
Is going vegan better for the environment? This is the easy part of the video because the answer is super simple. Yes. Point blank. Yes.
Okay, we can stop. 10 out of 10. Great video. Bye.
Study after study after study has found that a vegan diet, as compared to a full-on meat-eating or omnivorous diet, or even a vegetarian diet, uses less land, conserves more water, and produces less greenhouse gases, by about 70 to 80% compared to omnivorous diets. And that's a huge difference. Now, that's not to say every vegan food is created equal. We have an entire video breaking down which alternative milk is the best for the environment. And even there you can see that something like almond milk takes a lot more water to create than other alternatives.
I would love to see how exactly they compare different environmental factors. It's really hard to do to determine which one is actually the best because, as he said, some are going to be more water intensive, some are going to be better in terms of eutrophication. Our World in Data has a great article and a great little graph, little chart on milks, and that's basically what they say. It's really hard to figure out which one is the best. Again, it's very, very clear that no matter what plant milk you choose, it is better than cow's milk, but it's hard to choose the best among the plant milks. And probably any differences are going to be small. The main thing is stop or at least reduce your consumption of cow's milk.
On the whole, transitioning to a vegan or even vegetarian diet will significantly decrease your personal impact on the planet. Of course, simply reducing your meat and dairy consumption can also make a difference, so it doesn't have to be so black and white. But full stop, a vegan diet is better for the environment and the future of our planet.
Yay! That was so awesome. Compare that to how to cook that. that not great milk video she did where she was saying it's too hard to compare cow's milk to plant milks when we're talking about the environment, says the lady who literally makes money off of animal products. I mean, let's be real, she sells a dessert book that is by no means vegan. It might be an issue for her if she acknowledged that vegans are right. At least internally, might make her feel bad for encouraging environmental destruction.
On to the more complicated subject of diet. Interestingly, some of the first athletes on a strict plant-based diet were the gladiators. All fighters' diets contained large amounts of legumes, pulses, and grains, and contained little to no animal protein.
Cool, but gladiators were fat. They were intended to be fat because it made for a better show and kept them going for longer. Also, they downed vile brews of charred wood or bone ash for calcium. So yeah, I'm not sure what his point is here.
One of the big questions that comes up a lot is, did we evolve as vegetarians or meat eaters?
Which is really stupid in my opinion. It's like the least interesting thing to focus on, and it has such an obvious answer. Yes, of course humans have eaten meat for like our entire existence. Our closest relatives, all of the other great apes, also consume animals. Gorillas, chimpanzees, etc. They eat a fair amount of insects and even other primates sometimes. You should read some of Jane Goodall's reading, spending time with chimpanzees, and just how aggressive and brutal and just seemingly mean they can be. Very human-like.
You raised our spirits about animals and chimpanzee life, and then all of a sudden in comes the big surprise, which is once you start looking at communities, infanticide, warfare, all the terrible things that we also hoped were only uniquely ours.
Well, don't say I broke your hearts, they broke mine, and you shared my grief.
But yeah, we are here today because of meat. There is no doubt about it. Our ancestors, many of them, would not have been able to survive without animal products, without those extra calories. But we have grocery stores, right? We don't have to do that. We don't have to live on fruits and greens and bugs. We can get plenty of calories from fruits and vegetables, and also from cooked grains and legumes and even mock meats and ice cream, vegan ice cream. The important question is always, can we be healthy on a vegan diet? And it's very clear that we can.
Large canines are not exclusive to carnivorous animals. It's thought they likely evolved more for intimidation and competition among mates, as well as defense, rather than for eating meat.
Which makes sense. We have lateral movement in our jaws. We do not use our canines to rip into huge pieces to then gulp that down, right? If you watch how lions eat, they bite the pieces and they basically swallow them.
If we look at the diets of modern primates, the ones we're closely related to, like chimps, orangutans, and gorillas, you'll see that most of them have totally plant-based diets. I love thinking about chimps being hipster vegans, like, oh, you don't have any soy milk? Awkward.
Okay, number one, no. But also totally plant-based? No. No. Who told him that?
But seriously, if gorillas can get this jacked without the need for animal proteins, surely we're not meant to be eating meat. I mean, look at those muscles. Me throwing to our video on bestiality. Anyway, many suggest that
I was gonna make a point, but it's gone.
The truth is, there is no denying that our species turned to eating meat regularly. In fact, scientists estimate that our ancestors started eating meat around 2 million years ago. All we need to know is that while we do come from plant eaters, we have been eating meat for millions of years.
And again, they're largely plant eaters, but they do supplement those plants with mostly insects, but also mammals. Again, monkeys in some cases. Not other monkeys. Chimpanzees, gorillas are not monkeys. I had an anthropology teacher who very aggravated by that. I remember she said she went to, it was The Lion King, I think, a play, like a musical version of The Lion King, and she said they had gorillas like swinging from the trees, and she was so, what? That is not what gorillas do. Do you see how big they are? It's really funny what anthropologists get mad about.
Some people might tell you that you simply can't get enough protein without meat, but that's really not true. You can get tons of protein from whole grains, nuts, and beans, and for most people, this is more than enough. In fact, most research finds protein deficiency extremely rare, except in people who are simply not eating enough calories.
To be clear, there may be some benefits to eating more protein than just what we can eat to avoid I'm not going to say it because I always say it wrong. Protein deficiency, particularly if you are doing some form of resistance training, some form of strength training, which you should be doing, and other benefits beyond strength and hypertrophy. I personally aim for much higher than the RDA. And for many of us, it just feels better. It's a lot more satiating eating that way.
Vitamin B12 is required by animals for a whole host of biological pathways and for normal functioning. And the thing is, you cannot get B12 from any vegetables.
Actually, chlorella and duckweed might contain active B12 that we can actually use, but there is not nearly enough evidence. It cannot be emphasized enough that until a particular food obtained from multiple regions consistently improves vitamin B12 status in humans, it should not be relied upon as a source of vitamin B12.
Studies find that B12 deficiencies are a big problem for a lot of vegans and vegetarians. When your levels are low, it can impact brain functioning, energy, and mood, and at worst, it can cause full-on hallucinations. I mean, if that's what you're going for, maybe just try some psilocybin instead. Me throwing to our video on shrooms.
He's cute, but also cringe. Aren't we all? On a positive note, when we look at more recent studies on veganism and B12, generally we see better compliance with B12 supplementation and therefore lower rates of deficiency. It seems more vegans are aware of B12 supplementation and no longer believe that it's fine, you don't need supplements because organic fruits and vegetables, you get it from your digestive tract.
Luckily, supplements are a thing. You can literally just take B12 pills and then you never have to worry about this. The same can be said for other nutrient deficiencies that tend to pop up for vegans, like iron or omega-3s.
Omega-3 deficiency in vegans? I'd never heard of that. Whether you're talking about short chain, long chain, ALAs, EPA, DHA, there's no RDA for these. There's adequate intake, which is basically like, we think this is the amount you need, maybe. And when talking about vegans and vegetarians specifically, the studies we have are comparing them to levels in omnivores. So it sounds like he is assuming that because our levels tend to be lower than those of omnivores, that we are deficient, but that's not what that means. It might not matter at all that our levels are lower. We really don't know. That said, you do want to make sure you get ALA. You can get it from walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, canola oil. Your body does convert that to EPA and DHA, but conversion is pretty low. Many vegan dietitians do recommend to supplement with a DHA or an EPA and DHA supplement. There are vegan ones available, but again, that might not be necessary.
But another area that brings up some concern is bone strength. If you grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, then you're more than aware of the many campaigns touting the health benefits of milk.
Not just the 90s, we have a new fantastic ad.
Cow's milk, which naturally contains calcium and is absorbed easily into the body, is often promoted for good, strong bones. And a research study from 2020 backed this up when it found that vegans have a much higher risk of breaking their bones than meat eaters. This was a study that followed around 2,000 vegans and compared them to non-vegans over the course of a few decades, and their risk of bone breaks was basically twice as likely.
Actually, I have a video talking about that study and the wonderful Jack Norris from veganhealth.org. He is an RD, a registered dietitian. He has a very long written series on that study.
But here's the weird part. When we look at countries that simply don't drink as much milk as a whole, this pattern doesn't hold. For example, in West Africa, consumption of dairy isn't that common, and yet they have extremely low rates of osteoporosis, like a fraction of a percent. And a study that compared 40 countries' consumption of dairy also found that those who had little milk were not any more likely to break their hips. Even studies within the same country have found confusing results. When comparing heavy milk drinkers to light milk drinkers, there's really not a clear link between bone strength and breakage.
Which makes sense because, again, there are so many other nutrients besides calcium that are important for bone health. It's probably the biggest problem with focusing so much on milk and calcium over the last several decades. Part of that has resulted in, I think, ignoring the other important nutrients and lifestyle factors. Again, resistance training. Point is, talking about the difference between West Africa and, in this case, this study is on Norwegian people. Well, we can see a pretty clear difference there, right? sunshine, vitamin D. Norwegians are chronically low in vitamin D just because of where they live. So it could be that calcium matters, but if you aren't getting enough vitamin D, there's only so much it's going to do for you. Or it could just be genetic. This paper presents a compelling link between lactase persistence, or lactose tolerant, right? The opposite of lactose intolerant, and osteoporosis.
The truth is, dairy isn't the only way to consume calcium. It's in lots of veggies like kale, bok choy, and broccoli, and there's even fortified foods like orange juice and cereal that contain it. But for vegans, even when studies account for calcium intake, those who were eating lots of calcium were still more likely to break bones.
That's not true for all studies. Many of the studies on vegans, vegetarians, and hip fractures, bone health, do find a clear association between calcium consumption and increased risk. The lower your consumption, the higher your risk. But that 2020 study did not, which is what makes it so interesting. Well, potentially interesting. There are a lot of problems, I think, with that study, particularly how they group different BMIs.
So perhaps there is another environmental or situational factor outside of diet that's playing a role here and is yet unknown.
One of those potential unknowns would be vitamin A. This is the conclusion that, again, Jack Norris, veganhealth.org, draws from that study, which sounds crazy, right? Carrots, sweet potato, pumpkin are full of vitamin A, lots of leafy greens as well, but you can be vegan without eating very much of those foods. So yeah.
It's worth bringing up that most of this data is on adults, and studies that do look at kids are much more clear-cut. Kids that drink milk break fewer bones than those who don't.
It makes me absolutely cringe, the vegan what I ate today style videos I watch of children, right? Vegan parents and their vegan kids, when they are not given some sort of calcium fortified milk to drink. That is so incredibly risky. I don't care if they're eating greens every day. That is just so stupid, in my opinion. Needless to say, my children, well, my 10-month-old is still on formula, but my 4-year-old and my 6-year-old get their fortified soy milk every day. Sometimes fortified pea milk, usually soy milk.
Finally, on the bad side, research has found that both vegans and vegetarians are at a higher risk for stroke. However, the overall risk is small, around 3 extra cases per 1,000 people over 10 years, and this particular study had many limitations, including quite a small sample, so it's difficult to draw major conclusions from it.
Again, 10 out of 10. That was perfectly said. I have nothing to add. For once.
So are there any specific health benefits to going vegan? Definitely. A study on over 90,000 people found that vegans are less likely to develop high blood pressure, obesity, type 2 diabetes, some types of cancer, and are more likely to live longer. A vegan diet lowers cholesterol, and many of these foods contain a lot of antioxidant phytonutrients and nitrates versus some animal products which contain more pro-inflammatory fats.
Not just some, I mean all animal products have pro-inflammatory fats. It just depends on if they have other factors that outweigh that downside, because all foods have downsides, just to be clear. All foods contain toxins, right? It's just a matter of, do the pros outweigh the cons? And in almost every case with whole plant foods, yes, the pros outweigh the cons.
Some studies have even found a vegan diet to be one of the healthiest, outperforming even pescatarian and vegetarian diets, likely because of its higher fruit, vegetable, and legume intake. Of course, it's also possible that vegans are just generally more health conscious to begin with. Vegans do tend to smoke less, drink less alcohol, and exercise more, and whether it's something bad in meat and dairy or helpful in all the extra veggies is yet to be determined.
It is very likely both. We have really so many reasons to believe that animal products affect us largely negatively, most animal products. And it also makes sense that fruits and vegetables are mitigating those effects to some degree. It would not surprise me at all that someone eating a large amount of animal products, but also eating a large amount of leafy greens and fruits, beans, nuts, and seeds would be much healthier than another person who's eating the same amount of animal products without all of those healthy plant foods.
Of course, it's worth pointing out that it's just as easy to be an unhealthy vegan, with all the options for junk and processed food nowadays, so in no way does going vegan necessitate a healthier diet automatically.
I hate watching people eat close up like that. Yeah, an interesting study came out, I believe just this year, just a few months ago. I haven't looked at it yet, but the headline is essentially that a large number of vegans eat not great, which possibly is not surprising given the large increase of unhealthy vegan stuff over the last 3 to 5 years in particular. There's a lot more available to us now, And whether you are new to veganism, I think it's exciting. Oh, I still get to eat this. I still get to eat this. And then if you've been vegan a long time, it might also be exciting that, oh, I can have this again. I can have ice cream again. That's like actually good. It's not fucking rice based. Remember that rice dream shit? Like, thank you for being there for us, but I'm so glad we have moved past you. And then there are some vegans who are more anti-diet and really don't care about eating healthfully on a vegan diet. I've seen a lot more of the lazy vegan / fat vegan kind of stuff, seemingly wearing that as like a badge of honor. But that's just an offshoot of this increase in anti-diet mentality, intuitive eating mentality. Obesity doesn't matter, actually. Yes, it does. And then there are people like me, I would guess this is most vegans. We eat largely healthy fruits and vegetables and whole beans and grains and all that stuff, but we also eat the vegan ice creams and the blow pops. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with blow pops, just all of a sudden. Oh, and interesting fact, calcium. One blow pop has 10% of the daily value. I guess it's in the gum. No more 10 blow pops a day for me.
The biggest question remaining is, can it make you a better athlete? A NERMI study following 8,000 runners from across Europe comparing meat eaters, vegans, and vegetarians is currently testing this idea of improved endurance. Because veganism may boost immunity and aid in recovery and rehabilitation from injury, a lot of athletes are keen to take advantage of these perks. At the very least, it's been shown that a well-planned vegan diet does meet the nutritional requirements for endurance athletes. In other words, it's just as good at the very least as an omnivorous diet. Whether it's optimal is yet to be determined.
Are they the only athletes? Endurance athletes? What about strength athletes?
At the end of the day, what can we conclude from the available research? Well, on the one hand, a vegan diet is unequivocally better for the environment. And while it's a whole other conversation to talk about the responsibility of corporations and institutions versus individuals, as an individual, it is a simple step that you can take to minimize your impact if that matters to you.
Wow, I'm surprised you said simple step to take. I think a lot of people would disagree with that, but certainly it is one of, if not the biggest thing we can do in terms of modifying our carbon footprint. There's really nothing else that compares except for transportation. And obviously it's different individual to individual. If you are flying a lot, yeah, that's probably going to be your biggest impact right there. And reducing that is going to make a huge difference for you. But for someone like me who like never flies and drives an electric car,
when it comes to diet, at worst, there could be some setbacks to your health, but those can typically be mitigated through careful planning and supplementation, and at best, it may actually be better for your overall health and well-being if you put in the effort to do it with intention and health in mind.
Very well said. Again, 10 out of 10.
I know there's a lot of concern around companies capitalizing on claims that may or may not be exaggerated. I think it's totally fair to be skeptical. The vegan market is estimated to hit $24 billion by 2026, so we all need to have our bullshit meters up.
Corporations, vegan or not, they are corporations. They are selling their product, they're selling their brand. So yeah, don't take health advice from brands. Always be skeptical, whether it's Tyson or Beyond Meat. Always be skeptical regarding the health claims. But yeah, overall, really solid video. I'm really interested in watching the milk comparison, the plant milk comparison, and also that plant intelligence video.
If you measure intelligence or thought as the ability to solve problems, interact with an environment, and even work in groups, then plants are incredibly smart. It's something to think about the next time you're munching down on a piece of broccoli.
Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Like the video if you did. Subscribe, that really helps me out. Clicking the little bell helps me out too, and turning on your notifications. And thank you so much to my patrons at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. I do post 2 exclusive videos there a month for $5 plus patrons. The first one is, well, this month's was just talking about my teeth and a new great development, so that's fun. And then the next one will be the controversial video for this month. I do a video on some sort of controversial topic that's not related to veganism, and that will be up for this month for May very soon. But yeah, thanks again, everybody. New video soon. I will say I hate this thumbnail, right? The thumbnail is the lie. The video is not about lies, like, at all. What the fuck is this? It just seems desperate. Like, please click on the video, please. Is that my kid saying I need help? What is happening? I'm trying to work. Oh my lord. Men.